Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to this section. In this section, we will be discussing how the web page works. And these are the takeaways from this particular video. So, we would want to figure out what's the difference between a web page, a web server, a web browser, and a search engine. We would also want to know like what's is a client, and we would also want to know what's a server, and you would also want to know and explain in your own words, hopefully at the end of this video, how, for example, Google gets to work on your browser, right? Let's get right into it and let's get started. So a browser basically is that piece of software you have right now on your computer. Hopefully, you're using that to watch this video. And a browser basically is the piece of software that you use to interact with the web. And basically, we have a couple. Google Chrome is my favorite, and a web browser basically is used to display a web page. And we have a couple browsers, right? You have Google Chrome, you have Firefox, you have Safari, Internet Explorer, you have Edge, you have Brave. There are just so many web browsers out there now, but these are the most popular ones. But for the purpose of this course, we would actually be taking a look at Google Chrome as the browser of choice. So, having said that, let's talk about a server. So, on the other hand, a server is a program that runs on another computer to deliver web pages in response to a request. A server typically is like another computer that you don't tend to see. Typically, this computer is always sit out like far away in the desert. I can actually show you a picture of what that looks like. The sit far away in the desert, and basically, these are huge computers, super huge ones, and all they are tasked with is receiving requests from people all over the world who says, "Oh, I want access to this web page," and the server would either send the web page if it has it already, or if it doesn't have it, it could generate it and send it back. And we will be talking a lot more about how web pages are generated later on in the course. But for now, just think about it as the servers have those web pages stored in them, and they just send back those web pages when someone requested. So if you go to google.com, your request goes from your browser to your server, and then the server is going to send you back a web page to display on your browser, and then you can then see the google.com logo and the search bar. Okay, so let's go on to the next concept, and this concept is the concept of a web page, right? So I've actually spoken about a web page a couple times, and a web page basically is just a document, right, that your browser understands. In general, you have this document written in HTML, and this document is kind of different from any other documents you've seen, right? It's not just your standard Microsoft Word document, but it's more of I would say a file that your server sends back to your client. So your server sends back to your client, and you can see in this particular instant, I'm interchanging the word browser and client because people tend to use them interchangeably. So you basically would send you the web page from your server back to your client, or AKA the browser, and that particular web page gets displayed in your browser, and that web page is written in HTML, and we would be taking a much more detailed look at HTML later on, as we go along the course. And basically, we have another concept we would like to look at, and that's the concept of an IDE. So what's an IDE? An IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, and this is just a very, I would say, long form of just answering the basic question of where will I write my code, right? Are you going to write your code in Microsoft Word? Of course not, right? Or are you going to write your code in Notepad? Of course not. So where are you going to write the code? So we refer to that piece of software where you write the code as an IDE, and we have a couple IDEs, right? So we have Atom, Visual Studio Code, Sublime Text, Notepad. I'm pretty sure not all of you would be familiar with all of this, but if you're curious, you could actually set them up on Google and probably download them and play around with them. But in general, IDEs are actually built and designed designed to make the process of writing code much easier and enjoyable. So you're gonna find it easier to write your code in Atom or in Visual Studio Code or in Sublime Text or in Notepad++, unlike if, let's say, you decide to use a generic file editor, right? So we would be using Visual Studio Code in this particular course just because it's also easier for you to have the same thing displaying on your screen as what I have. And yeah, we would go forward from there. So let's talk about your homework. So as you go along the course, I actually have it in mind to give you a couple assessments, and it would actually be great if you can churn in those assessments on time. And the general idea here is that you're going to use GitHub. And GitHub is basically a way for you to be able to save your code on the cloud and share them with other people. Definitely, GitHub is way more complicated than that. But for starters, let's just have that simple idea and concept of GitHub. So GitHub is like a storage for your code online and other people could see it. So you can think about it like, let's say, Dropbox, right? So or Google Drive. So if you have a picture you took on a family vacation, you're most likely going to upload that on Google Drive, or you're most likely going to upload that on Dropbox. But for coding, when you actually write your code, you would upload it to a service like GitHub. So if you're not familiar with GitHub, we're going to talk about that later on in the course, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you're curious, you could actually go to github.com and just basically take a look and see how it looks, right? But in this course, you're gonna actually be uploading all of your code to GitHub. So having said that, I think that's the end of this section. I would see you in the next video, and in that next video, we're gonna be talking about CSS. So have a wonderful rest of your time. Bye for now.